All right, so today is soups. And I have one day to tell you about all the soups in the world. So it's going to be a good challenge and a little bit longer lecture today. Perhaps no other area of the kitchen can a chef express his art than soups. Soups are a blank canvas. And now that we know flavorful liquids and thickening agents, you can make almost any kind of soup in the world. In a lot of places that I worked, we would have the main soup, maybe a secondary soup, and then in the kitchen, not out in the dining room, we would have garbage soup. Things that might have otherwise wound up in the garbage. So we do some kind of beef and gravy dish, put some barley in it, it's beef and barley soup. Got a bunch of grilled chicken left over, you can chop that up and turn it into any kind of chicken soup. This is why this is such a great thing for chefs. When I've interviewed chefs for my catering company, I don't ask them to make their signature dish. They've made their signature dish 100 times. I'll ask them to make me a soup or sauce. This, I think, is the skill of the kitchen. So you can turn just about anything into a soup, virtually any kind of ingredients, right? Any kind of seasonings, any kind of garnishes, any kind of food really can be turned into a soup. There are very, very few limitations. Great soups are made, of course, with the finest ingredients, starting with a flavorful stock. Basis of most soups, flavorful stock or milk. We're making a cream-based soup. And the soups are classified by cooking technique and appearance. So, soups are classified as either thick soups, or clear soups. Right? And this should be pretty obvious, that you can look into the bowl and you can identify which is a clear soup and a thick soup. Thick soups are cream soups or puree soups. Clear soups are generally broths. So a cream soup, very often vegetables that are poached and then a thickening agent is added. Thickener. Okay, we really don't have cream of chicken soup, right? I mean, I guess you could, but mostly it's cream of carrot, cream of celery, cream of vegetable. This thickener is generally one of the mother sauces that you have previously prepared. So you wouldn't take a bunch of vegetables, poach them in liquid, and then add a roux or a beurre to it because you're going to have a floury taste. So our thickener here is either going to be a velouté or a bechamel. That's why it's important to know how to make these mother sauces. So when we make a cream soup today, a cream of something, made from starchy vegetables, beans, legumes, usually a starchy item. We want to poach them in liquid, chicken stock or flavorful liquid, but you can also poach all these vegetables in water. And you know, I always say there's nothing that has less flavor than water, but imagine poaching a whole bunch of broccoli in water for a while. What do you wind up with? A broccoli broth, right? You kind of do flavor the water in that regard. But I would go with a chicken broth or a vegetable broth to add one flavor on top of the other. So after the main ingredients are simmered, the mixture, or a portion of it, because it might be too thin in this regard, add velouté, add bechamel, and then at the end, we can mount with butter, monte au beurre. A-U-B-E-U-R-R-E. You can mount with butter. A little bit of shine at the top. Pureed soups, very similar, usually with vegetables. Does a puree of beef soup sound good? No. Usually vegetables or beans. Same thing, poached in a flavorful liquid. But now there's no thickener that will add to a pureed soup. I mean, we can, but in process there is none. Because the soup is then pureed and the starchy vegetables become the thickening agent. Veg, thick. So a puree of black bean soup, a puree of broccoli soup, a puree of carrot soup, it is actually the pureeing of the items that thicken the soup. But here's the thing, if you poach them in a whole bunch of liquid and then you just drop the stick blender into the liquid and poach it, what if it's way too watery? right? There's no way to thicken it. Would you poach more carrots, puree them, and add it to it? Or maybe at this point now you'd be forced to put some kind of roux or velouté bechamel in there. My point is that if you poach vegetables in liquid, the liquid then needs to be strained and set aside. You puree the solids so that you can add the appropriate amount of liquid back. People make the mistake of taking their entire pot of broccoli that's been simmering, drop the stick blender into it, and it's like, oh man, now this is way too thin. Strain the items, liquids from solids, puree only the solids, add some of that flavorful liquid back to your consistency. So the difference between a cream soup and a puree soup, the thickening agent in a cream soup, velouté, bechamel, I guess if you were making something brown sauce, but one of the mother sauces. The thickening agent in a puree soup, the vegetables themselves, the item themselves. So you might have cream of chicken. I don't think you'd have puree of chicken. Broth soups or clear soups are pretty much self-explanatory. This is where you have a very flavorful liquid, a chicken broth, a beef broth, something like that. You might saute some chicken and cut it up into pieces. You might steam some chicken, cut it up into pieces. You might cook chicken in other regard, cut the pieces up along with nicely cut carrot, onion, celery. This is why knife skills are so important. Simmer them all in a broth. Add the noodles to it, right? Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. So we won't spend a lot of time on that. The important thing about clear soups is that they are so visible to the eye, right? This is why it's very important. Knife skills, appearance, most important. Well, maybe not most. Taste is extremely important. But appearance. So that if I made a bowl of soup and I gave you this bowl of soup and there was one carrot that was round and another one that was square, one of them's this big, there's a stick of a carrot, there's a half moon of a carrot, you're going to look at it and be like, would you find those carrots somewhere? It looks like it was not cooked with much regard. Because a clear soup is so apparent to the eye, knife skills are so much more important. Are knife skills important in a puree soup? Ah, you can put all the stuff in a puree and who cares how they were cut? With the one caveat that things that are cut consistently cook consistently. So if you have a piece of broccoli like this you're poaching and a piece of broccoli like that, it might not puree consistently. But for a knife skills standpoint, clear soups, most important for knife skills because of the appearance.